Hey there, this is Darren. Day 8. Day 8. Who is your hero's hero? Do you ever think about that? Who is the person who helped your mentor? Who inspired your mentor? Who was the person above the person who you look up to and you get guidance from? It's a fascinating question. Take some time, do a little research, because you might just see a little bit more about who they are, why they became who they did. You know, some people know Jim Rohn. A lot of people know Tony Robbins. A lot of Tony Robbins people don't know that Jim Rohn was his mentor. But who is your mentor's mentor? It was just such a fascinating journey. I talked about this earlier, but I've always been a fan of the movie Rudy. And when I moved here to Las Vegas, I made it my mission to find, one of my bucket list things. I want to meet Rudy, the guy of the movie, the true man of the movie who lived the life that they created a movie about that inspired me and kept me going when I was told I was crazy and I was stupid and that's not for you. So I started writing it out, started researching it on the web, trying to figure out, well, where does he live? I actually found out that he had an office 1 mile from my house here in Henderson, Nevada. And I was like, wow. And so I started stalking him and shooting emails and reaching out and didn't hear back. And then it was actually... I started putting it out there. I'm like, somebody I know has to know somebody who he knows. And finally, Judy Morio, a friend, connected me with a friend of Rudy's, and I got to have lunch with Rudy. It was like the coolest moment. I'm like, oh, it's like a little kid having lunch with Santa Claus. I'm like, it's Rudy. And we were actually up at in the district area, if you're familiar with Henderson, in the district. It was at Cheesecake Factory. And it was one of the highlights of my life, just meeting him. But we sat down, there's the movie's one thing, but what's the person really like? And oh my, he is the bull in the china shop. He was so inspiring. And what was fascinating was how he told me the movie came about. After he graduated from Notre Dame, he was working for a company and they brought in a motivational speaker. And when he brought in this speaker, he realized, that's what I want to do for a living. I want to do what you do. So he went up to the guy after and said, I want to do what you do. And the speaker, I don't know who he was, said, well, why should anyone listen to you? What have you done? What's the reason you should get that stage? And so he really thought about it. And he said, well, I went to Notre Dame, but so haven't tens of thousands of people. And when he thought about it, he said, well, if they made a movie about my life, that would help me get booked as a speaker. That would make it easy. And I'm not suggesting that marketing plan, but it worked. It worked, and so he is a speaker. I had no idea he was a speaker, and here I am a speaker, not even knowing that. So it was cool, but what was really fascinating was hearing the story behind the movie and how he was convinced and committed to find someone to write it. So Angelo Pizzo, forgive me, I just didn't think to write that down. He's the guy who wrote Rudy. Well, he had written Hoosiers, and he told Rudy, I'm not going to write another Indiana sports movie, but Rudy is Rudy, and he wouldn't give up. So he kept on him and kept on him. And finally, he told me these great stories, and I don't know if they're public knowledge or not, but I was so inspired, and it took them 10 years. In fact, one of the stories I do remember is obviously they wanted to film at Notre Dame. That was his goal, to play football at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame did not want to do another sports movie. After Win One for the Gipper, Notre Dame was like, nope, we're not doing it. So Rudy took it upon himself to figure out and convince them. And so he did some research, and he found out that the original campus of Notre Dame had burned down. And in his research, he found out that the leaders of Notre Dame College, Notre Dame, at that time had not done the stereotypical Catholic thing. You know, it's a Catholic school. They hadn't done the stereotypical Catholic thing. And so Rudy went to the leaders now and said, look, this is not a football movie. This is a dreamer movie. The founders of Notre Dame, when Notre Dame burned down, the stereotypical Catholic, what do I want to say, the word that I'm looking for, superstitious, would have thought God doesn't want us to have this college because it burned down. But instead, the founders thought God was mad the campus burned down because we didn't think big enough. We have to build a bigger campus. And he said, this is a dreamer movie. And he convinced them, and they obviously filmed there. What was also really cool, hey Sherry, what was really cool is just hearing all the stories behind it, and that it was not an easy process. It's not like, oh, here's the script, we're going to make it. When I talked to him, he also told me that the person who inspired him was Sylvester Stallone. And you may have heard that Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky in like 3 days, and he also had no money, had to sell his dog. It's a famous motivational story as well. But he was inspired by the movie Rocky and Sylvester Stallone writing it, and that's what gave him the idea to tell his story. So I just think it's cool, and I was more inspired by him getting the movie created than the movie itself. And that's kind of what put me on this mission. But it starts with a great question. Who is your hero's hero? I hope you consider joining us in this 77-day video challenge. Simple, one lesson from your life, one lesson from your journey, from you going after your goal. If you're alive, you got some lessons. You survived some things. It will also help you find your voice and try out new content. But along the way, you're going to help people. You're going to inspire people. You have a story to tell, as Mark says, Mark Brown, you have a story to tell, and someone needs to hear it. So I'm doing these videos at 8:17 every morning, and, well, I missed yesterday morning, but I did it last night because I had an event. But, hey, look, get out there, live the life. There was this series at my church called Live a Life Worth Watching. And I'm trying to do this by example. I want to inspire you to tell your story because someone uniquely needs to hear your story. And I'm talking to you, Sherry. See you tomorrow.